Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Foreign Field Podcast, Season 2, Episode 7. Back for another action-packed episode after 500 miles in Atlanta. We got a lot to talk about today. I'm happy to be back. And Steve, it looks like you're a little more energized this week, maybe not as
No,
tired.
no, I'm getting there. I'm getting there, but not as bad as last week. Didn't have to call me in, didn't have to wake me up or nothing. I'm should be ready to go this week.
Well, somebody we know is going to be awake during this show is Wes. Wes has got his Dunkin' coffee, so we know he's not going to be falling asleep today. How is it going, Wes?
Oh, it's going well. Today's my Friday. I got the coffee I'm sipping on. We're living life. We're here back on the Four and Fuel podcast, chatting some NASCAR this week. How's it going, Dom? What's happening?
It feels I'm doing great. Nobody actually asked me how I was doing last week, so it's good to be asked again this week. So I saw that, but we're gonna ignore that. Might just not introduce him this week. So no, I'm kidding. We'll introduce him. Sam, I saw you sipping something before we started tonight. What do you got?
I'm sipping on an undisclosed drink. It is a sports drink. Sponsor us if you want me to say the name. But yeah, I had a pretty good day. I haven't really done much. Just been kind of chilling, get some schoolwork done, stuff like that. Yeah, college life, man.
Yeah, I understand. I've got another month of college left, and then I'm done graduating, getting my bachelor's, getting out of there, and looking to get into the journalism field, whether it be NASCAR. Hopefully, NASCAR. That's what we're trying to get into. But if not, we'll see what our opportunities take us. So before we get started into last week's action, we got to talk about fresh off tonight. The NASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series happened. They did their first race of the year at the Bristol Dirt Track. And in no shocker, William Byron, just kind of going where he was, he's taking off from where he started last year and getting his fourth win in the Pro Invitational Series. That is an all-time record. He's the all-time wins leader in the Pro Invitational Series. He won his heat race pretty easily, and then once he got by James Davison in the main race, he ended up winning. Yeah, no one really contested him. So William Byron back to victory lane. So will that make him the favorite this week? I doubt it. Obviously, iRacing's different. It was only a 70-lap race, 250 laps this weekend. We'll get into that later. So, Steve, I know there was a little controversy before the race with Timmy Hill not being invited into the race, the only full-time Cup driver not being invited, but then Brad Keselowski wasn't going to race originally, and Austin Cindric was going to fill in for him. But how do you think that was handled by NASCAR by bringing in drivers like Clint Bowyer, Dale Jr., but not allowing Timmy Hill to originally race?
Yeah, I just think it was wrong on NASCAR, and you saw Twitter. I mean, Timmy Hill was trending for, throughout the night, let Timmy race, and even Toyota Racing got in on it, and that was my respect for Austin Cindric definitely went up, because he gave the seat up. He could have, gave the bird to Timmy Hill and said, "No, I'm going to race this thing," but he gave it over to Timmy Hill, and rightfully so. Timmy Hill with his 7,000 iRacing wins, is going to keep that car in good shape. And you won a race at Texas last year in the Pro Invitational Series. So I don't understand why NASCAR on Fox didn't give him an interview, but we're letting Dale Jr. and Clint Bowyer race. No disrespect to them, but when you get an iRacer like Timmy Hill, he definitely deserved a spot, and had that car up front a couple times and was knocking down the wall a couple times also. So he put on a good show, and I hope moving forward with the more of these Pro Invitational races that they do, that they'll invite Timmy Hill back for real this time.
Definitely. I think they need to. He's a good face, good character for these races. And like you said, he's a smart driver on the sim. So that's one less guy that you have to worry about causing stupid wrecks and really all that and making it actually look like a video game. So we'll go into the truck race. Not really too much to talk about. Obviously, Kyle Busch going back to victory lane in the truck series. That's nothing new. I think the only thing you could really talk about is should Kyle Busch still be allowed to race in there? But God, how many times have we heard that discussion? If you want to see people crying, go to Twitter. You'll see it everywhere every time Kyle Busch steps into a truck or an Xfinity car. If you want to see the fights and the waterworks, go to Twitter and that just go in the comments and you'll see a lot of it. So
I used to be one of those fans that was like, God, Kyle Busch is in this race. I might not even bother to watch. But over the last couple of years, I've gained a lot of respect for him just because it's showing that he still cares about the truck series and the Xfinity series and stuff like that. And even running his own team, like he wants to see where his equipment's at compared to the field. And yeah, you can lean on Chandler Smith and John Hunter Nemechek to give you feedback, but when you can actually go out there and race and have fun and get the extra track time during the weekend, it just adds on to. And of course, he's building his legacy in the truck series. Already passed Ron Hornaday for the most wins in the truck series, passed Mark Martin for the most wins in the Xfinity series. So I think, yeah, it shows that Kyle Busch still cares about that series, and I think a lot of people need to have more of that mindset towards Kyle Busch.
yeah, definitely. Kyle Busch is just there. I'm curious to see if Kyle Busch will hold up to that deal he kind of slightly mentioned one time where he would go into the truck series for a year after he retires from full-time cup racing to try to get a truck championship. Because honestly, at this rate, I'm not sure we're going to get a driver that's going to win all three. Because as good as Austin Dillon is, I'm not sure he can win a cup championship at RCR. And there were some hopes. You had Christopher Bell, but he couldn't seal that Xfinity championship. So it's going to be tough to see anybody really come up through the ranks, win a championship in every series. I think the closest we honestly got was Greg Biffle. When Greg Biffle, I remember back in 2008, he won the first 2 races of the Chase, and we thought, hey, maybe the Biff, but did not happen. So other than that, the truck race was better quality-wise. There wasn't as much stupidity in the truck race as we've seen, at least from what I saw. I don't know if you agree with me, Wes, on less stupidity this week in the truck series.
Yeah, this truck race actually, I think, went green flag the whole way, minus the stage break and then minus the competition caution they had, which is impressive because we had, of course, Bill Lester returning, a driver that has had no practice, hasn't raced in many, many years, and goes out there and is, I mean, he goes laps down, but he's doing the best he can, and he wanted to finish all the laps, which he was able to accomplish. And everybody else stayed pretty clean for the most part. There was a couple times we saw contact out on the track, but I thought it was very surprising the transition, because this track we know for it being multi-groove, a lot of slipping and sliding, but they managed to keep it really clean compared to some of these other previous weeks that we saw. So it was good on their part. But then, kind of like you guys mentioned, just a dominating performance from Kyle Busch. John Hunter was able to stay up front for most of the race. Austin Hill got a good charge at the end. It was nice to see Austin kind of get back into his form that we saw a couple years ago, because last year it seemed like he kind of lost a little bit of steam as a team, not just him as a driver. It came up short a few times. But it was a pretty good race, I think. And I was going to add too, I'm kind of glad Kyle Busch still races in the truck series, not only just because he cares, but it's a good test for these drivers. I mean, they want to be able to compete against the best. I don't think we should be complaining, or fans should be complaining, that drivers are getting challenged by one of the best drivers in the sport, if not the best driver currently in NASCAR. So I think it's always good to see Kyle Busch come down to the truck series, and hopefully in the future we see some more guys from the Cup series come down as the year kind of progresses.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with that 100%. It really gives these guys a test and see where they're at. Like John Hunter Nemechek, a good win at Las Vegas, beating Kyle Busch. And then really, it's just, yeah, people need to stop complaining. Nothing's ever going to happen. It's never going to end. Cup drivers are going to race in the lower series. They've already limited it enough. Just, they got to let it go. Now on to the Xfinity race. So another Cup driver came down and raced, and that was Martin Truex Jr. His first start in over 10 years in the Xfinity series. He was the dominant car of the day until he got a speeding penalty late in the race in stage 3, which kind of opened the door for Justin Allgaier. Now, Truex was able to get back to second, but once he got up to second, it just seemed like he used his stuff up and just could not get to Justin Allgaier to really challenge him for the win. Allgaier seemed to have a really good long run car, and that's really the Justin Allgaier type of driver he is. He's really good at taking care of the stuff, and he really thrives off a long run. Now, Steve, what do you think this win could do for Justin Allgaier? Because it seems like in years past, Allgaier wasn't able to get that early win. It seemed like he was always going late into the season. It's like, when's Justin Allgaier going to win? Like, is he even a championship threat? Like, what does this do for him in that 7 team?
Right. This was more than just a win for the 7 team. This was an entire win for Junior Motorsports. This entire organization needed this win. But like you said, Allgaier has always been kind of a late regular season, early playoff kind of winner before they really get going. And thankfully, over the last couple of years, they've been really good in the playoffs and shown that, have gotten to the championship 4 multiple times. But now this win, only a handful of races in, this just allows them to be more aggressive. They can make bolder calls. They can try different strategies because they have that win in the bag. They're almost guaranteed a spot into the playoffs. Granted, if we don't, if scenarios don't work out where we have more winners than spots, but this just allows them to be a lot more aggressive with the play calls that they have here. And as far as the organization, they've been struggling across the board. Noah Gragson had the heartbreak at Miami a couple weeks ago. Was running top 5 at Atlanta. Michael Annette's had decent runs here or there. Allgaier has had speed almost every race and, got caught up in a late race wreck at Daytona, wrecked with a couple laps to go at the road course. He's not very good at Homestead. Had a good car at Phoenix and didn't get the win there. So hopefully he's able to build on it now. And like we saw last year when he won at Dover, went out a couple of weeks later and swept the weekend at Richmond. So I think this allows them to be a lot more aggressive. And I think we'll see a lot more wins out of the 7 team this year.
Definitely. And I want to keep this in the Junior Motorsports organization and talk about Josh Berry and his incident off turn 4, slid, got into the grass and destroyed the entire front end of that car. Now, Sam, we've seen drivers complain about this issue. We've seen everybody honestly complain about it. And I think that something needs to be done with these infield grasses. Do you agree with that? And what you think the tracks will do it, really, honestly?
Well, first of all, that's a lot of money for what I consider a design flaw, and that splitter being as low as it is. The splitter just shouldn't exist in general, in my personal opinion, because if you look back at the Gen 4 cars, they didn't have a splitter that was 3 inches off the ground. Racing was as good as it is now, if not better. And they honestly, I don't think that you should have to spend a bunch of money to get turf just because there's a certain design flaw in your car to where they can't go over grass. And if it goes over grass, it ends your entire day. It's really dumb. I mean, yeah, that would putting turf down instead of grass would fix your problem if you want to be hard-headed and continue to use the same car. But that's just a lot of wasted money by the tracks, and the tracks really that's the money that they don't have, especially coming off of a year where they haven't been able to have as many fans, and they won't be able to go at full capacity until the end of this year into next year. So they're not really going to have the money to fix this issue, and it's honestly just it's an issue that shouldn't have to be addressed in the first place because it's fixing something for a design flaw in the car.
No, definitely. The cars can be fixed. The track can be fixed. The cars would be easier to change, like you said, cheaper. than the track having to fork up the money to take the grass out and put some turf in. I know Charlotte's done it. I've been there a couple times, walked on the track in the infield. It's very nice. We don't have that issue at Charlotte, but other mile and a halves, but under the same title of Speedway Incorporated, they own the tracks. Like, why aren't they doing anything about it? But yeah,
Did you
no,
see
there's
that grass at Atlanta too. That grass was like 10 inches tall.
yeah, it's like they didn't mow the grass there. They were just like, well, you get it in there, man. You're going into the air. I mean, that was a violent.
It was really
hit.
bad. That was a really bad hit. I was concerned when I saw it because he popped a full wheelie. Like, he was straight up and down, man. Like, that was bad.
We haven't seen something like that since like Mason Mingus at Chicagoland in the Truck Series. And that was really bad. But yeah, no, the grass should not be ending people's days. If you're not in the wall or into somebody else, you really shouldn't be done for the day because of a car flaw and a track flaw. So I don't know if there's really a car flaw in this incident, but there was a big wreck to end stage 2 where Brandon Jones got turned. Man, I'll tell you what, we have said that Brandon Jones isn't the brightest driver, isn't the best driver, but man, the last couple weeks, he has just had some target on his back because he is just getting taken out for no reason. I mean, Allmendinger just hooked him at Phoenix, and then this week he just gets hooked again on the back stretch. Wes, what is going on? What did Brandon Jones do to these guys?
I don't know, but he did something Allmendinger and Moffitt these past 2 weeks that they didn't cover on TV, which, I'm not going to say anything, but we could have missed because we know. But I'm not going to get into it. It was crazy, though. I mean, we just saw it just – of course, there was one lap left, and everybody was fighting for that track position, but it was a crazy way to see the stage end like that, and it took out a lot of guys that had winning capable cars, I would say. And it was unfortunate, but at the same time, we saw some drivers recover. Unfortunately, Brandon Jones wasn't in that category. He was done for the day. Too much damage. Brett Moffitt caused the accident. He had too much damage as well. Tried to fill in that hole that wasn't there. He might have been told he was clear, but he wasn't. And we've seen him make that mistake a couple times in the past couple of years. But it was impressive, though, I would say, to see how Noah Gragson and AJ Allmendinger recovered because they had quite a bit of damage, at least what, we would say should impact the car aerodynamically. But I think those composite bodies were definitely held up like they should. And we saw them be able to work their way back through the field and kind of have race winning capable cars still with the damage. You have to wonder how their cars could have handled if they didn't have it. But it was still very impressive nonetheless to see them be able to bounce back the way they did, especially the fact for Noah's case, I would say in particular, because he's been in such a hole in points so far this year just from bad luck. And this was the race, it looked like more bad luck had struck, but he was able to bounce back in a strong way. But unfortunately, there was something else that happened on the track with old Noah Gragson that didn't really happen. I think we're going to get into that probably right this second.
Yeah, Daniel Hemrick.
Where's DJ Khaled with the another one?
Noah Gragson goes down pit road with Daniel Hemrick, and they kind of go in a little awkwardly, and it causes Noah to overshoot his pit box. So then Noah backs it up and gets into the front end of Hemrick, who's in his pit stall getting his service done. And then that gets Daniel Hemrick really mad because apparently it put a hole in the nose, and a hole in the nose is just no bueno at any track really, but especially at a mile and a half. I mean, that's just a killer for the aerodynamics. So after the race, Noah Gragson's giving an interview, and then all of a sudden you just see Daniel Hemrick come flying in and get in Noah's face, and then the fisticuffs, just everything happens, and then Noah throws in a swing, doesn't quite land it.
Whiffed really hard.
But he did swing. Now we got to go to our MMA expert. What's the form? We need a breakdown of the form there from Noah Gragson.
It was all right. It wasn't that bad. I was impressed how quick Hemrick was able to throw a counter. I didn't think he was going to get one off that quick, and it actually slightly connected. He mentioned in his post fight interview, I shall say. But the one thing I don't like when it comes to that, I don't really mind if they fight. I know that sounds terrible to say because I mean it's just part of the deal. I mean, if you're going to do it, I don't blame you. You've got all the reason in the world to. If you get fined, it's your own fault. But if you choose to do it, it's your choice. I don't think anybody should stop you. But I do have an issue always with the crew hopping in. I don't think it's none of their business. They had nothing to do with it. I don't care if you're part of the team or not. What happened on track is between them. Let them settle it. That's always been my take when it comes to these fights. I don't like when the crew steps in. So that was the issue that I had. I understand the frustration between the two. I understand trying to split them up, but not if the crews are gonna start fighting each other. I don't think that makes any sense in the world. But I understand though. Compassion for your driver. You're trying to look out for them, but at the same time, sometimes it just gets a little bit out of hand. I also think it was out of hand on the pit road too, with backing up. Whether he did it on purpose or not, you got to be more careful on that. I mean, it just puts lives in danger. We saw back in the early '90s incident with Bill Elliott, one of his crew members getting killed on pit road from a driver spinning out. Of course, different situation, but and then last year with Ryan Blaney, and I believe it was I don't remember who it was, but someone ended up getting into his box and almost injured one of his pit crew, which of course accidental, but still incredibly dangerous. I mean, cars go at such a high rate of speed. It's just uncalled for either way. And hopefully now that the deal's done, we can just move on and see what happens the rest of the season between the two.
There's nothing more embarrassing. Nothing more embarrassing than the pit crews getting into it. Oh my God, there is nothing worse than the pit crews getting into these fights. I mean, you go back to 2019 Martinsville with Logano and Hamlin. They're just fine. And then the fight starts, and then one of Joey Logano's pit crew thinks he's a Mr. Tough Guy and throws Hamlin to the ground. Like, come on. I mean, if you want Hamlin on the ground, at least let Joey throw him on the ground at least. Like, come on. It's just such a mess, and then it just turns into a big mosh pit. And it's so stupid. It's like in baseball when the bench is clear, and then the guys in the bullpen start running in 10 minutes after the fight's over. Like, it's so stupid.
See, I'm usually on your side here. I usually don't like the crews getting into it, but when a driver makes a boneheaded decision like that and puts your crew in danger, that's when I'm okay with it. I'm like, if you're going to be stupid, and this just goes to who Noah Gragson is. He's really fiery in his post-race interviews, but that just comes from him being a you-know-what person. Okay, he does this all the time. This isn't the first time that he's done something stupid. And when you do something like that and you put somebody's crew members who are just working on the cars in danger like that, that's when I'm okay with a crew member stepping in.
And if you haven't listened to the latest Dale Jr. download with Dave and Ryan Blaney, they covered this. Him and Mike Davis covered this for probably about 15, 20 minutes or so, where they're breaking it down and what their thoughts were as owner and PR guy or whatever. And I think Dale explained his side of it really well, in the fact that while his perspective was that Noah didn't intentionally back up into Hemrick, but he did think that the move was careless. And I think he explained there's a really fine line between that was kind of a careless or reckless move versus just backing into the 18 car. And then Mike Davis added a really good point that he was on Noah Gregson's side. Like, everything he said in the post-race interview was fine. Like, they got no issue with the fight, but it was when you start taking personal shots at guys about their career, now it gets personal. And that's personally where I have an issue with stuff like this, is that, whatever happened on track is fine. If you want to fight, whatever. But once you start going after a guy's career, now that's personal. Now he's got a motive to just dump your ass the next week. And so I think that's something that Noah Gragson, he's going to get his ass kicked one of these weeks really good. And I'm not going to feel bad for him. He deserves it, and he's just, he's fiery, whatever. You gotta, he's got this personality that he's gotta fulfill, and I don't know. I think it's just gonna come around and bite him really hard.
Definitely, it's we got more characters in the Xfinity series right now than I think in the Cup series. And yeah, we don't really see this action in the Cup Series really ramp up until the playoffs when everything's on the line. But to see this in just an Atlanta race in the beginning of the year in the Xfinity Series, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays throughout the season and how, if a rivalry will form between Hemrick and Noah Gragson. So we got to move to Sunday in the Cup race, 500 miles at Atlanta, one of the few 500-mile races left in the Cup Series, really. And it really turned out to be the Kyle Larson show. It looked like I was getting that point last week for picking Kyle Larson. And then all of a sudden it turned into a battle between Larson and Blaney at the end of the race. Kyle Larson leading over 250 laps, just dominant performance. We haven't seen one of those in a while. And from a Hendrick car especially, Kyle Larson is really showing what that team is capable of and what he's capable of. Really kind of showing how much he was held back at Chip Ganassi Racing, really. So, I mean, it was a decent battle at the end. People could say, oh, it was Joey Logano that held Larson up enough to get Blaney by him. I think there was something to do with that. I think it definitely played a little bit of an outcome. I think it got Blaney there faster. I think if Logano had moved out of the way before Blaney passed Larson, it probably would have been one of those like Gordon Johnson Atlanta races back in 2011, which was I was rooting for that. I was rooting for a good finish, but it seemed like Larson may have had to drive his car a little too hard at the beginning of that run, and it kind of got away from him at the end. And Blaney, in not a Penske car, really characteristic of having the best long run car. You usually look at the Penske guys as the short run guys, and they seem to fade. But Blaney this week was the exact opposite. It took the whole run to get to him, but he definitely did and got him at the right time. Big win for Ryan Blaney. Sam, do you think Penske had any team orders? Because Keselowski was doing something weird at the end of that race with Larson. I don't know what they were doing. Looked like they were trying to box Larson in with like 2 or 3 to go.
Well, obviously, your spotter, your crew chief, or whoever is going to be in your ear, like, hey, leaders behind you, guy behind him is 12 car. Like, hey, you may want to race him a little harder. But I mean, I don't think there's anything like really intentional, like him trying to wreck the 5 or anything, like those type of team orders. It's just like, hey, make him use up his stuff, because we know that Ryan's back there and Ryan's been saving his stuff and he's got enough to take him on. And then, it ended up affecting the outcome, but like not as much. Ryan Blaney still more than likely would have won that race regardless, just because his car was so much faster even before Larson caught Logano. But Logano definitely helped and was made it to where the 12 was able to just drive away and make it less of a battle and more of just the 12 car wins the race outright. So yeah, I'd say it was. I can't really say it's team orders. He's not Roger Penske didn't mic down like, hey, make sure the 12 car wins this. But it was definitely told to them, hey, your teammates back there in second. Like Joey was actually racing to be on the lead lap. How we were talking a couple weeks ago on the pod about how I was like, David Starr should have just pulled out of the way, but it's coming towards the end. You're trying to stay on the lead lap in case there's a caution or something. You may be able to get a better finish. Same thing here. He was racing hard to stay on the lead lap. Plus, he had in his ear, hey, your teammates back there, you might want to race them a little harder. So overall, no, I don't think there's any like specific team orders. It's just kind of like, that you want somebody from your camp to win the race.
Definitely. And you look at Ryan Blaney, a big win for him. It looked like they were a little off to start the season, maybe the worst at Penske, but now first Penske car to get in the victory lane this year. And he's going to be in the playoffs. And it really wasn't a lucky win, as he's had kind of in the past. It's good to see him get a win in a mile and a half. but all his wins are still with not last lap passes, but passes for the lead with under 10 to go. That has been the memo for Ryan Blaney, really being there at the end and sealing the deal at the end, not really ever dominating and winning, but getting that lead at the end and holding on to it. Now, there was an incident back earlier in the race, really your only incident of the race, with Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch was running top 5, the first half of that race. We get a restart. Kyle Busch spins the tires. Chase Elliott hits him. Everybody else just stacks up on the outside. They fan out 3-4 wide. And it looks like Kurt Busch goes into turn 1, hits a bump, gets a little out of shape, and Denny Hamlin gives him a tap, and it sends him right up into the outside wall and miraculously doesn't take out anybody else. I couldn't believe that. I thought that was destined to be a big one, but it only took out Kurt Busch. Unfortunate incident for Kurt. But, I mean, it's just one of those racing deals going to turn 1. Hamlin gives him a little push, and it sent Kurt all out of shape.
That early in the race, it's just a race deal. You can't give a little bit. It's a give and take thing. It's 500-mile race, and you can't give a little bit to keep from sending somebody into the outside wall.
But Denny Hamlin checks up, and he might get run over. I mean, you're in the middle of 3-4 wide. There's not much to check up for, and you can't anticipate Kurt Busch to hit a bump and get a little out of shape before you hit him.
The bump that he got hit by was Denny Hamlin's front bumper, boss.
But if you look at it again, he gets out of shape right before Hamlin hits him.
That's simply not correct. That's
because by
true.
that logic, then why did Kyle Busch not spin when Chase Elliott ran into the back of him?
Stumped. He's stumped.
I'm not stumped. Okay, I actually don't know what you're talking about.
On the restart, Chase Elliott got into the back of Kyle Busch, and that's what gave Chase Elliott the damage he ended up getting up, which ended up making him blow up later on in the race.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. But that was earlier that's when they're getting up through the gears. That's not when you're turning into turn 1.
They're still getting up into the gear. They didn't make it to turn 1. They still weren't in turn 1 when Kurt Busch was in the wall.
They were arcing into turn 1.
But they're not in the fourth gear. They're probably not even in the 4th gear yet.
Okay, I said the wrong thing. Okay, they were closer to up to speed going into 1, and they're turning. So when you get into somebody, when you try and give someone a bump while they're turning at 1.5 miles, that's just not going to go well. And you got to be smart enough to not do that early. Now, if it was later in the race, I'd just call it a racing deal, and that's that. But Denny Hamlin's too much of a veteran. He's too smart to do something like that to another.
Wow, that's
veteran.
the first time you've called Denny Hamlin smart.
I mean,
Wes,
he should be. Okay, he should be smart. I'm not gonna put him as smart yet, but he should be smart.
It's a racing deal. He hits him in the back. You can't anticipate Kurt Busch to just go right when you hit him. Usually, that's not how it works. I mean, he hit him pretty straight.
When you plow through him, they go
He
right.
hit him pretty straight. It's not like
works.
he was going 10 miles an hour faster. He's maybe going 5, maybe. But I'm telling you that when Kurt Busch hit that bump, it slowed him down. It got him a little out of shape and slowed him down.
All right, let's just agree to disagree and move on to the other topics from this race.
So Chase Elliott blowing up, Steve. What's the deal with Chase Elliott, man? Chase Elliott right now, he is not looking too hot there at Hendrick Motorsports.
Nope. No, I think he needs Cliff Daniels. I think he needs that 5 team to come over to the 9. And no, it's just a slow start. It happens every year for Chase Elliott. Gets off to a really slow start. Hopefully they can turn things around. I don't have high hopes for him at the Bristol Dirt Race. But Martinsville coming up the week after that. So he might do good there. He sucks at Richmond the week after that. So we'll see. There's always Talladega coming up in a couple weeks too, and the 9 car is really good there. So that's about it.
Now, speaking of, going back to Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin now has 5 top 5s and is leading the Winston Cup Series points by a lot over Kyle Larson. Now he's got a full race lead over second. He's got 5 top 5s, and if it wasn't for a speeding penalty at Homestead, he might have a top 5 in every race this season. So consistency for Hamlin is there. So I don't think anything's fallen off for Hamlin. Obviously, he doesn't have a win yet, like he has had the last 2 years, but Hamlin looking very consistent. I think him and Larson right now, I think, are the class of the field every week. When it comes to being consistently up front, those guys are looking good. And guys that aren't looking good, Wes, Storthaus Racing. What is going on with them? Like, we know the other three, like, if you don't count Kevin Harvick, man, that team it looks like they're underfunded. They're not running anywhere inside the top 20.
Yeah, I have no clue what's going on. I mean, it's, you look at the rest of Ford and you see Chris Buescher and Michael McDowell, the success that they've had so far this year. And then you look at Stewart-Haas, the team that excelled last year, the team that had a lot of wins. Kevin Harvick, of course, the predominant factor in that, but Clint Boyer running up front a lot of races, Cole Custer getting his first win, and Almirola's consistency, especially in the middle half of the season. I mean, none of that's there right now. Something's going on. Kevin Harvick's been quick, but he hasn't been or shown race-winning pace. Cole Custer, we saw in the Xfinity Series, it seemed like he got better with practice and with time. This season so far, we haven't seen it. Eric Almirola, we've always known him for his consistency, especially getting those top fives, top tens, being a very big factor at the end of the races and making it far through the playoffs. And this year, he doesn't even have one top 10. I think the only race he was even close to being competitive in was at Phoenix, and he didn't even finish top 10. I think he finished 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And now I give Briscoe the only exception, no practice, very similar situation as to the big three last year when they moved on into the Cup Series. Briscoe's a little bit more understanding, but he's not even off to the start that we saw like Tyler Reddick have. Tyler Reddick started off strong last year. Christopher Bell came on strong at the end. Cole Custer was solid in the middle. We'll have to see where Chase Briscoe gets, but right now they're going to have to find something, and they're going to have to find it quick because we're already running short on time. I know we still have quite a bit of races left until the playoffs, but the number of drivers that have already won, very competitive list from Ryan Blaney to Michael McDowell to William Byron, and the big guys haven't even won yet, like the Denny Hamlins, the Brad Keselowskis, the Joey Logano's. So we're going to have to see what happens. They're going to have to start getting up front quick, or else their time is going to be limited when it comes to even making the playoffs this season.
Definitely a lot of guys still yet to win, and we've got 6 winners already. That leaves 10 more spots, and just for some reason, say Denny Hamlin doesn't win but holds on to the points lead at the end of the regular season, that's a guaranteed spot. Being the regular season champion is a guaranteed spot, win or no win. So this is going to be the year where we could see 16 winners before the playoffs, just with how unpredictable everything has been. I personally don't think it'll happen, but there's definitely a good chance it could. If it's going to happen any year, this year is going to be the year. So speaking of, hoping for something or, maybe getting something, we want to get your questions. No questions again this week. That's kind of on us. We didn't really post a tweet asking for your questions this week. We'll get on that next week. We're going to post it early in the week so we can get them answered for you. But make sure you check us out on Twitter at 4 and Fuel Podcast. That's it. No spaces, underscores, hashtags, nothing. Just at 4 and Fuel Podcast. Like, follow, everything. Retweet our tweets. Interact with us. We want to talk to you guys, see what you guys got to think. Now, we're going to go to our race picks for the Bristol Dirt Race. We're going to start with America's pick. Wes this week tweeted out a poll for who you guys thought was going to win, and overwhelmingly, everyone went with Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson, the dirt ace going into this week, the odds-on favorite. So the fans are going with the odds-on favorite, and that means Wes gets to go first, virtue of his Brad Keselowski pick last week.
Man, I was back and forth on this one. I leaned Austin Dillon at first. He's got a lot of experience. He's already had practice down in Bristol just this last weekend. He's the only guy that's really been able to dominate at Bristol already, and he's won at Eldora, but I didn't go him. Or maybe Ryan Blaney has a shot, his dad Dave, his uncle Dale. They have a dirt background. They might have a chance to pull it off. Blaney looking for 2 in a row, but I went with the obvious favorite. I went Kyle Larson. I think Larson, he's had a shot to win every single race this season. He's the only driver that I think could have been 6 for 6 when it comes to wins. Do we have 6 different winners? Is it 5?
Yes.
I already lost
It's
track.
6.
We got
6 different winners already. And he's been up front every single race, and he's going to a place where he excels. I mean, of course, he hasn't raced in Bristol, but dirt racing's his background. I think he's got a really good shot. And I think he's motivated after last week, having such a dominant car, but just fading away too much at the end. He's going to be hungry to get that win, and especially hungry to win on a place that is basically his entire life. So Kyle Larson's my pick.
And, not a shocker there. Will Steve give us a shocker pick?
Nope. I'm going to go with the other dirt guy. I'm going Seabell on this one. If it wasn't Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell was the next choice. And with all his experience on dirt and winning the Chili Bowl and everything that you could, won the truck race at Eldora. So I'm going to go Seabell. I think he's going to put the Irwin Tools Camry in victory lane this week.
Now, I don't even know why I let this guy pick after all the clownery this episode, but Sam gets to go before me because I was so close last week to getting the point.
Yeah, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So try again. I'm going with a little bit of a long shot pick. Both the teed up balls have already been hit by Wes and Steve. So I'm going with someone that's making his. I believe it's his first start. It's his first start in the Cup Series, and it's for an underfunded team. But like we talked about last week, and the great equalizer is the dirt, and this guy has a lot of dirt experience. He's run well in a lot of different formats on dirt. So I'm going to go with Stuart Friesen as my pick in the 77 Spire Motorsports machine.
Well, interesting pick. I think we know who's going to be picking first next week, but I got left with some interesting options. You had to look at the RCR guys. They both look good. Austin Dillon has won at Eldora before. He's won at the Bristol Dirt track before, actually. And, he's beaten guys like Kyle Larson before, Christopher Bell. But I'm going to go his teammate, Tyler Reddick. I think Tyler Reddick looked really good in the Pro Invitational. I know that's a really bad thing to base your judgment off, but if you're looking at somebody to go, ride the wall, Tyler Reddick's your man. So I think Tyler Reddick is going to get his first Cup win at the Bristol Dirt Race. Kyle Larson's going to get beat by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick is going to win, and I'm going to get on the board. It's only going to take us 7 weeks, but I really think one of us is going to be right this week. If it's not me, somebody else has got to be right. There's no way we go 0 for 7.
We took the guys that have a chance, right? We say that every week. Knock on wood. Everything should go according to plan. I'm just
before
kidding.
they all wreck in one wreck together.
All of our picks are going to wreck and somebody else is going to win. Ricky Stenhouse is going to pull it off.
Yeah.
None of us picked Stenhouse.
Quinn House.
Yeah.
Watch,
Marlar's
Josh
gonna come through
Galicki's
the
going to
field.
come through and someone's mortgage is going to get paid off.
Exactly.
He's going to hit that whip Nene and he's going to win.
Yeah.
Where did he come from?
Man, Boyer might start. I'm just waiting for Boyer. Where's he going to be? We haven't announced. I'm just waiting for someone to pull out and then they say, "Hey, Clint, come on over." And Clint's going to say, "Oh yeah, you know what it is."
Before we end the episode, I would say I would love to see something like the Prelude to the Dream again. I think if this race goes successfully, I'd love to see something like that again. That would be pretty cool. Get these guys into some real dirt cars and get out there and race. Maybe not have Kyle Larson in the race or Christopher Bell, so it's a little more even. But who knows? But
Kenny Schrader.
Ken Schrader. Why didn't he
do
get a
it
ride?
all for charity,
Where's
too?
Kenny Schrader's ride this week?
I know, poor guy got screwed over.
Jeff Bodine, where's his ride? We thought something, maybe he'd announced something. We haven't even heard anything from Jeff Bodine since that one picture surfaced on Twitter.
Just a big disappointment.
No.
Nothing else we can say.
Well, other than that, that's all we got for this week's episode. Episode 7 of the second season, going to the Bristol Dirt Race. I'm super excited to see how it turns out. I think it's either going to be one of the best races or it's going to be a big flop. But anyways, we'll see how it works out for the future. We're going to talk about it all next week. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about next week, especially with the trucks and the Cup Series. So can't wait to talk about it next week. For Sam, Wes, Steve, I'm Dom, and we'll see you guys next week.